Hey, it's the Empire, Geoboxing Empire, Backdoor Boxing. Nah, man, WBC is protecting my boy Ryan King Garcia again. They're protecting him because he was the mandatory for my boy Devin the Dream Haney. Um, he beat by Liam Walsh and by KO, and that was supposed to be for the mandatory spot to fight Devin Haney. Then he said that, you know what, instead of fighting Devin Haney, after Eddie Hearn called him out and said you should fight the guy, Ryan Garcia was saying things like, well, he's going to be fighting Manny Pacquiao next, or Gervonta Tank Davis next. That did not happen. Pacquiao actually had to call out Ryan Garcia and tell him that, hey, man, you can't be telling people you're going to be fighting me, or we're going to have to take legal action. Pacquiao had to actually come out and say something like that because Ryan Garcia is a 135 fighter, and Pacquiao's two weight divisions up at 147. Right? That being said, Ryan Garcia then goes out and says he's going to fight Fortuna, and that fight didn't happen. He had to drop out. He dropped out the fight talking about he has mental problems or he had mental health concerns, right? Dropped out the Fortuna fight, and then he was supposed to fight Jojo Diaz, and that fight didn't happen. It's wild, man. There's like a long list of fighters that, Ryan Garcia is supposed to be fighting, and eventually, the WBC said, man, listen, man, if you don't want to fight this guy, we're just going to drop you from the rankings. And this is like a double-edged sword for Ryan Garcia, because at one point, you don't have to be forced to fight Devin Haney, the Dream Haney, right? WBC 135 champion. But at the same token, it damages your brand, right? Now, Ryan Garcia is very animated in his character. He was saying the most outrageous, brash, cocky stuff I ever seen in boxing. This guy never been a champion, right? Devin Haney, the WBC 135 champion. Ryan Garcia would say things like, well, I don't want to fight the guy. The guy's boring. The guy doesn't have the right kind of style. And this is a kid who's never been a champion before, right? Ryan Garcia also is under Golden Boy Promotions, and Golden Boy Promotions are paying Ryan Garcia purses like hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is peanuts compared to what Devin the Dream Haney is getting paid. Devin Haney gets paid at least over $1 million a fight every time he fights, right? You can pit Jojo Diaz and Ryan Garcia's checks together, and Ryan Garcia and Jojo Diaz, their checks would not come close to what Devin the Dream Haney makes. So, Ryan Garcia, while he has an extreme following on social media, they're trying to paint this guy as the next big thing. But for him, unfortunately, you need to be a champion, man. He's trying to pull a Jake Paul and become big without the accolades in boxing, without the star power, without the belts, right? Unfortunately for Ryan Garcia, his followers online don't translate into cash because he's not doing big numbers at all. He's just not. The closest thing he can do is sell out an arena, but as far as pay-per-view or, getting paid big money, he's not doing that because if he was making big money, he'd get paid like it, but he's not. So, Devin Haney is most likely going to be fighting Jojo Diaz next, and this is good because this can basically get Devin Haney to fight Jojo Diaz for not only, and Jojo Diaz will get paid more, right? He'll get paid more by fighting Jojo Diaz, and this would be a big fight because this is one of Devin Haney's mandatory, that therefore giving him more legitimacy. But Ryan Garcia, he's rumored to fight Yukio Gamboa. I went through everyone Ryan Garcia is supposed to be fighting, so take that with a grain of salt. The guy is rumored to fight everyone. And, so we're going to see how this whole thing plays out. I think that's a solid fight for Ryan Garcia. I think it's sort of exciting because Gamboa used to be known for his speed, and Ryan Garcia is known for his speed. So this is going to be the battle of who's really the fastest with fundamentals. I do think that Gamboa boxes a little bit better than Ryan Garcia because he's a gold medalist. So he actually moves as well, not just throwing punches, but he actually moves really well as well, right? He's not just hand speed fast. There's a lot of those kind of fighters in boxing, right? Think Andy Ruiz. Fast hands, slow feet. Ryan Garcia. Fast hands, slow feet. Yukio Gamboa. Fast hands, fast feet. So That's the difference between the two fighters. You know, as far as defense goes, I think they both get hit a lot as far as Gamboa and Ryan Garcia. So we're going to see how that plays out. I'm pretty sure. I don't know his stats, but Ryan Garcia seems like a taller fighter to me. So we're going to see how that his height and reach plays in the fight with Yuriorkis Gamboa and Ryan Garcia. But Ryan Garcia really needs to come out and fight somebody. And Gamboa is a good name for him to fight at this point of his career. He just needs to get his feet wet with somebody because people are tired of him saying he's going to do this and do that. And the guy hasn't done anything. So, Ryan Garcia has came out multiple times and said that this is going to be the takeover. This is going to be the year where I'm taking over. It's my year. And he hasn't really made, he talks bigger than his actions. He thinks he's making a big splash, but man, he's making a big, it's like throwing a pedal in a pond. You can barely tell what it was. But Ryan Garcia thinks that's a tsunami. Not so much. Not when you're really fighting any big names. Then you still have yet to fight for a title, right? So we're going to see how this whole thing plays out with Ryan Garcia, man. But yeah, man, really disappointing Ryan Garcia. He's winning multiple podcasts, like the Mike Tyson podcast, talking about how he was going to fight Gervonta Tank Davis and how Tank Davis, if he ducks him, that it will destroy his career and how people will never forget it. It destroy his legacy. But at the end of the day, he hasn't done anything. And not only has Gervonta Tank Davis went up in weight from 130 to 135 to 135 to 140, he went up 2 weight classes while being the 130 champion. But he's fighting secondary title holders for WBA regular titles, something that Ryan Garcia still hasn't done yet. So while people want to trash one fighter for not fighting for quote-unquote legitimate titles, these are former Gervonta Tank Davis is a multi-division, multi-belt holder in 130, right? He had more than one title at 130, right? He had the WBA regular title, and I believe he had the IBF. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But yeah, man, that all being said, man, we're going to see how this whole thing plays out with Ryan Garcia, but I'm glad that Devin Haney can finally move on. There's jokes online that the mandatory is fighting the mandatory for the mandatory, and Jojo Diaz being the mandatory for Devin Haney, and Ryan Garcia being the mandatory for Devin Haney, but they both decided not to enact their mandatory position, and how they're both supposed to fight each other for the top mandatory spot. It's wild stuff in boxing, man. The WBC actually said some dumb shit like they actually said there's a double elimination mandatory position. It was insane. I never heard it, and they mandated it. They mandated it to happen with Jojo Diaz and Ryan Garcia, and Ryan Garcia still didn't take the fight. It's just really, really infuriating moves done by Ryan Garcia. Infuriating to say the least, man. So, WBC, man, you don't know what they're going to do next. You don't know what they're going to mandate. But this is probably the first time I've seen in boxing history that a sanctioning body ordered an international title defense between two mandatories to fight for the mandatory. It was insane. I never heard anything like it. But Mauricio Solomon, the CEO and the son of the founder of the WBC, the guy is he's corrupt, man. Let's keep it a buck. He's corrupt, and he plays favorites in boxing. He will make a way for you. He will make a way for you if you're on his favorites list. If you are from Mexico, So that all being said, man, we're gonna see how Ryan Garcia, what happens, man, and I just hope he fights, man. Hope he fights, because there's a lot of hype behind him. I want to see if it's true. Can he beat all these top guys? I mean, Ryan Garcia says so. His fans say he's the next big thing. Every time people talk about Ryan Garcia, it's always in connection with the champions, the Devin Haneys, the current WBC champion, Teofimo Lopez, the man who just beat and dethroned Vasily Lomachenko. It's always in collusion with these champions who have achieved amazing and great things in boxing. Devin Haney is a young cat, and he beat Jorge Linares, completely destroyed him, wasn't even close, right? I mean, I can go down a list on Devin Haney's resume, but these fighters, the Teofimo Lopez's and Devin Haney, they have a deep, deep resume in boxing. Ryan Garcia, not so much. So anyway, man, wild stuff from Ryan Garcia. Finally, he's going to be dropped from the WBC mandatory rankings, and he's going to be fighting Yuriorkis Gamboa. But anyway, man, this is a big deal. I'll finally get something done with the WBC strap. Maybe Devin Haney and Jojo Diaz can fight finally. Anyway, let me know you guys feel about it though. Like, comment, subscribe. This is the Empire. Geobox Empire. Peace. Geobox Empire.